Let's start with Greenland. Um, Here is the Politico headline. I think this is an accurate Politico headline. Not every Politico headline I would say is 100% accurate, but 103, this one is.
Okay.
Trump's Greenland gambit has broken brains across Washington. You could say the same thing about Europe. And Guys, we've talked all week about this. Here's the one question I want to ask you about the deal. We don't know what's in the deal, which is part of why I don't want to talk about it very much, because we'd be analyzing Casper the Friendly Ghost in the dark. Horrible metaphor. Let's say the deal is what most people say, which is the U.S. is not going to own all of Greenland. The U.S. is going to have access to a lot of real estate to build military facilities. The U.S. is going to have some connection to maybe most favored nation on access to the rare earth minerals. And there's going to be a lot of cooperation to keep China and Russia out of the area. Is that deal, assuming that's what the deal is, Hogan? Critics say the president could have had that deal without all of this kerfuffle. Supporters say the thing he got, which he couldn't have gotten without the kerfuffle, is he can do stuff now without approval of the Danish parliament. Once the deal's struck, he doesn't have to go to the Danish parliament to get to do things. And I believe that that was the thing the president actually wanted, and I believe he got it. I believe, not sure. So Hogan, could the president have gotten this exact deal or something pretty close to it without the kerfuffle?
No, no. Listen, this is what's so interesting. We were on live yesterday on this very program, different co-host with myself. It wasn't Kevin. We were kind of live in real time talking about the president's speech, and we were basically saying, I think what's happening here is he lays out this pragmatic case for what he's trying to accomplish. Everyone thought he was going to come in fiery and blustering. He didn't. He systematically, surgically laid out, here's why this is important for us. Here's what we should do. And I demand we get together and have talks. We speculated he'd probably have a deal by the time he left. And what happened? Hours later, after we got off air, he basically announces this deal. It could not have happened but for Donald Trump. And the reason you know that is because people always try to separate his bluster for look at what he does, not what he says. I would argue you can't get to where we want to go without the bluster, without the toughness, because no one's been able to do it until now. It's just virtually impossible. And Europe is kind of a go along to get along conglomerate.
So Hogan, what did he get?
Change the dynamic.
One question. I understand conceptually what you're talking about, but what did he get, as far as you can tell, that he wouldn't have gotten had he not threatened military action and threatened the terrorists? What's a specific thing?
Military. I don't know if he threatened military action.
What's the specific thing he got? He did. He didn't rule it out. Stephen Miller, his top aide, touted it. What did he get? What's a specific thing he got that he couldn't have gotten?
I think the deal itself is something he couldn't have gotten without being who he is.
Because they would have pussyfooted around and dragged it out.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Like they were.
So he got speed. Kevin, could he have gotten this deal without the hullabaloo, brouhaha, rat-a-tat-tat?
Probably not. Yeah, probably not. I think to your point, Mark, one of the things that he got out of this was a focus on Russia and China in the Arctic, something that if he had just called up the Danish prime minister and said, we want to reopen our Cold War era bases, that would have flown under the radar, and we would have reopened those and invested in those kind of, in the Iron Dome that he wants to build over Greenland. But again, the refocusing on our Iron Dome, refocus on Russia and China and what they're up to in terms of the lanes, the shipping lanes in the Arctic is something that only came with the bluster. I will also note, one of my interesting takeaways was seeing the Secretary General of NATO saying, had Trump not come back for a second term, would you all be spending 5%? He was on with Brett Baer yesterday, actually praising Donald Trump and that kind of bluster to get the Europeans to do something. And I give the president some credit on that front, as does the Secretary General, who's navigated Trump 2.0 very effectively, balancing the interest of Europe and balancing, a president that kind of shoots from the hip.
And hey, interestingly enough, I guess it was NATO in the first time when we were there, Mark, you'll recall, there was a moment where Trump came out and basically said, look, if you're not going to put up your 2%, we're out. We're done with this situation. People freaked out. Everyone there was running around crazy. And then I remember it was Stoltenberg, I guess, pulled him aside in a private room. And I was standing there and he goes, Mr. President, thank you so much. These countries should be doing more. They're not doing it. You're forcing them to the table and forcing them to pay their fair share, which is something I thought the left was for. It was such a fascinating moment. And Kevin's absolutely right here, because in this same thing, we've also heard countless times about how Russia is crazy for going after Ukraine, which I would agree with, but their aggression must be stopped. But for some reason, that Greenland didn't count in that Russian aggression. And because now news stories have floated around about China and Russia going around that landmass trying to figure it out, the heightened awareness and spotlight Donald Trump helped put on Russia and China, as Kevin so astutely pointed out, is a major win for this negotiation.
Only came with that bluster. Only came with that bluster.
Well, okay, you're both brilliant on this, and I just pat you both on the back. You will not hear this conversation anywhere else that I've heard, because, and primarily because the media is so hostile to the president. One more, and we got to be tight here because there's a ton of topics to get to. There already are, and there will be many, many more symposia, discussions, op-ed pieces about how the president has destroyed the relationship with Europe, how he's emboldened and empowered Putin in China, how this is a disaster for the United States. Okay. Again, if you don't like the status quo and you're president and you want to change the status quo, you got to break some eggs. You got to flip over some Parcheesi boards. You got to do some stuff. If the critics are right that there's lingering damage to the United States, because he's not the president of Europe, he's not the president of NATO. If there's any lingering damage to the United States, our security, our prosperity, our people, from the last few days around and last few weeks around Greenland and the president's bluster, what would it be? What's the thing you worry about that could be significant damage, not to the feelings of the Canadians, but to the people of the United States? Kevin, what would it be?
My only concern is intelligence sharing, right? If there's any kind of pullback with the Europeans, with Five Eyes, what have you, that would be my only concrete fear.
It's a great one, but of course they have nowhere to go. Yeah. They need us on intelligence, so it's a good one. It's a very good one, but I don't think it's going to happen. Hogan,
I think some of the leaders spelled it out where they said, "Listen, keep messing around with us, and we'll just have to go to Russia and China." Forget the fact that I think that they've been, in large part, funding Russia by buying their oil. So the whole thing is ridiculous. They're trying to protect Ukraine while funding the aggression against Ukraine. But I do think that's where you could see some issues when you begin to kind of muck around with the status quo. They're going to look for other partners and allies. And if Russia and China are willing, that could be a long-term issue. I don't think it's going to be.
Yeah. But go ahead, Kevin. Go ahead.
And to Hogan's point, you've seen a bevy of foreign ministers in Beijing from European countries. Ireland was just there. A few other countries
and Mark Carney
were just there in the last 2 weeks.
That to me is the damage. They start buying Chinese EVs. They start doing Belt and Road projects. That to me, but that was true before. But man, the United States better get these countries to stop going to kowtow. But of course, Trump's going to go kowtow to Xi, or at least summit with him.
Kowtow to Xi, but understand this too. The operation we did in Venezuela, which is 85, 89 minutes, whatever it was, Chinese officials were in Venezuela at that time, working out partnerships and deals. And Trump goes, yoink, I'm just going to take Maduro out.
Yeah. With Chinese anti-aircraft technology, Chinese anti-radar and aircraft technology on the ground.
Yes.
They say that something that's easy is like a walk in the park. Well, easier than a walk in the park, hit the subscribe button, be part of the two-way community, never miss an episode, be part of our conversations. Thank you for your service to America.
And don't forget, you can now listen to the morning meeting and Two-Way Tonight on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts.